Good morning, sir.
Good morning, everybody. Let us start. Let us hope that we'll have.
Sir, when will our
Fine.
college will be open?
Huh? Yeah.
Sir, when we will?
Well,
Sir, when will be our college will reopen?
hard question, tough question, sir, because it is not in our hand. Government bola to hoga. Still no news from a government or from the university. Actually, university following government's notification or process. তবে ধরে রাখো বিফোর এক্স মাস মোস্ট লাইকলি হবে না বা পসিবলি এরকম হতে পারে তোমরা প্র্যাকটিক্যাল ল্যাব ওপেন কিয়া slowly the classes will open like this. Let us see. After the November is going to be end. हमारा तो मालूम था कि December से 1st December से it will open, but it can open at any moment. It can give a notice at any moment. Let us see. I think it will go up to January. Possibly you have external exam. I mean offline examination, but classes offline possibly have to face for the next semester. Let me see. There is absolutely no news from anywhere. We are in contact with the university. We know that you are very much difficulties. We are eagerly waiting. Let me start. If it's open manually, I mean physical classes started, then I have to review a few of them, which is cannot be clear to you unless you face me on 1:1. Let me start. I can't finish it yesterday. This thing, I mean, day before yesterday. There is a brittle material, concentration of brittle material is there. The concentration of yielding generally applicable to the ductile materials. What is the definition of ductile materials? It comes under those categories who can be, as per definition, who can be drawn into wax. Those materials are defined as ductile materials, means steel, means copper, means aluminium, means brass. These are the commonly used item. Almost 94-95% materials in engineering industries covers these 4 items. Even steel has multiple and thousands of different varieties, but all of them is supposed to be ductile because all of them is supposed to be drawn into and wear resistor. One of the most ductile material is copper, but most ductile material is gold, which is best material which can be drawn into wear. Now, mostly we deal with the ductile materials in our classes, in our courses, in our factories, but still there is some application of brittle materials like cast iron, wrought iron, like this. Sometimes glass, sometimes not stone, but glass, etc. The difference between the brittle materials and raw material and brittle materials and your ductile materials is, as per the stress-strain curve, for brittle materials there is no yielding, no phenomenon of yielding, because brittle material cannot be drawn into wear at any position. There is no significant proportional limit, elastic limit, or ultimate limit in brittle material itself. It has only one limit, that is the breaking or ultimate limit, and after you've taken certain amount of load, it just breaks. For tensile cases, it is like this. For compressive, it takes considerable amount of load, but still it is not a question of forming an wear. It is not applicable for brittle material itself. For brittle materials are generally used where the compressive force is extremely high. So as it's the brittle material is cast iron like this, and different alloys of cast irons are comparatively cheap than any other material. They are used except in the application where it is supposed to take considerable amount of compressive load. Now I have shown you different points like true stress, actual and true stress, actual and true stress, and uh, just 1 second, and nominal stress itself. Now, what is given? There are three definitions are given, where it is a material is supposed to be a ductile material is supposed to rupture or break or tear out at ultimate point, which is the maximum load it can carry. But there are a few definitions. If the ultimate load is divided by the original cross-sectional area, this stress, ultimate stress, is defined as the nominal stress. Original cross-section, nominal, the term nominal means the maximum. Maximum times it is used as the maximum of certain thing. So here nominal stress is the maximum stress, and the load divided by the original diameter is known as, defined as nominal stress or ultimate strength, etc. But it is lesser at rupture load than the maximum load. But however, the stress obtained dividing with reduced cross-sectional area is known as actual or true stress. So if the rupture or true stress here the stress is divided by the actual reduced area itself. It is defined as the actual stress or true stress, and nominal stress is the maximum stress or ultimate stress itself. Now, for brittle material, no such stress exists. There is only one breaking stress for both tensile and compressive. But there is no such specific relation between the stress and strain, even in case of compressive load. But still, we assume that for compressive load at least, it actually follows Luke's law. Means the lift load is removed, it is totally goes back to the original shape, etc. Now, the strain at the line of fracture for brittle material much smaller than compressive to at the ductile material. Ductile material can be drawn to much higher stresses, higher loads. We can have much higher true stress or nominal stresses or brittle stresses, but there is for brittle material no such stresses exist, and that it can be much less than the brittle material than the ductile material itself. There is no such neck formation. Neck formation means the reduction area of the brittle material, and rupture occurs along a perpendicular surface to the load, indicating that normal stresses are primarily responsible for the failure of brittle material itself. Means what is the meaning of this term? Normal stresses are primarily responsible. Normal stress is the maximum stress or natural nominal stress. So this is maximum responsible for the failure of brittle materials. If the neck is formed or a particular neck is formed, we can say that shear force is predominant for breakage. But here, if there is nothing is formed, then the normal stress or nominal stress is responsible for breakage of brittle material itself. Now let us go through another important term known as factor of safety, which is extremely important from the machine design point of view. A machine component can be designed so that load carried by it under normal condition of utilization is considerably below the ultimate load. So we have to design. Design means we have to select the material, we have to select the dimensions in such a way it is loaded. It is supposed to be loaded much less than the considerable on the ultimate stress, so that it should not be like this, that it can, you have to exert these your machine elements or machine parts to the ultimate rate, so that under any circumstance with slight increase or decrease in pressure or something wrong from your side, the total machine will collapse. This should not be the case itself. So how will you do it? This smaller load is referred to as allowable load. This is defined as allowable load. So how much load you are allowing to your particular machine component or prismatic bar, whatever it may be. This is the allowable load. You have to select it properly, so that it no way your occasionally applicable load go beyond to this allowed load, causing failure of your machine member. But how will you do it? The allowable load is only a fraction. It's a fraction of ultimate load. Fraction of ultimate nominal or true load. Only a fraction. And of the load capacity machine. So it is clear, obvious, your machine member can carry much higher load, but you are not expecting them to carry it. You are not exerting a member to the maximum load in order to make it proper and long functioning. So to ensure safe working of the material, there is again certain uncertainty of various factors during operation machine. That is homogeneousness of the material, number of loadings during the cycle of the components, number of loading, static or certain method of analysis used, material natural causes, etc. So many things can affect your decision. So material cannot be homogeneous. They are not uniform everywhere in every cross section. There are certain cross sections, they are weak in nature. So if you execute the ultimate load, it will break much before than your actual process itself. Because never you can measure the ultimate load of the concerned machine member with which you are working. You are supposed to use only a specimen of it to measure the ultimate load. This is the practice. Because to know the tensile or compressive stresses, all the available processes are destructive in nature. You have to destroy the material concerned itself. So you cannot use the ultimate load. So what is the matter? Next, what is the number of loading? So this life cycle, you don't know that. Nobody can measure it. So you have to, if a particular material is loaded 1,000 number of times, it is made much less weak than it is loaded 100 number of times. So as you don't know, so you have certain accessible margin for your external available load. What will be the type of load? It is to which your bar is active, tensile, compressive, combination of two, shear, or a combination of all of them. It's very difficult to know. And always we make a lot of approximation to get this final value. But this also affects our allowable load selection. How we are analyzing, may analyze by considering the tensile load. In certain cases, but compressive load, certain shear stress is predominant. You don't know that, and so your analysis is failed. Then there's certain natural causes, etc. Something happens, the load is increased due to the application of certain harder materials or certain harder tools, something, whatever it may be. So a large portion of load carrying capacity is kept as reserve. That's why there is a considerable difference between the ultimate strength and allowable strength. A lot of strength is reserved in the load so that it does not fail at all. The ratio of ultimate load to the allowable or working load is known as a factor of safety. This is the important matter. Ultimate load, the maximum load it can carry, the allowable load, the maximum load it is supposed to carry. The maximum load it can carry and maximum divided by maximum load it is supposed to carry. We should say that our machine member will not be loaded beyond it. So this is a factor of safety, a number is defined, which you have to multiply it with the actual load, allowable load, you'll get the ultimate load. So it is always more than one and should be taken properly in proper guidance. You cannot make a very high factor of safety because it will increase your cost of making bigger loads or more costlier material itself. So it is an extremely important task for design engineer to decide the factor of safety, to take into account the various the cost factor as well as the safety factor itself. Now, as the stress is the load per unit area, there is allowable stress also is the allowable load per unit area. Also, allowable stress is known as design stress or working stress. So here we call design stress allowable stress or working stress, which is dividing the ultimate stress to get the factor of safety here itself. So this is the definition of factor of safety. Let us go through certain other elastic constants. Now, what you know, the factors to determine the deformities are produced by stress system acting on the material itself within elastic limits are constant and termed as elastic constant. So what is that? Any deformation produced in a stress system acting on a material within the elastic limit, say a stress or a load is acting on the material, but that load or stress is within the elastic limit. If you remove, it will our concerned concerned item will go back to the original shape. And so the deformation, in order to determine the deformation within the elastic limits are constant, and definitely we know as elastic constant means what is the ratio between the strain and stress, and that is the elastic constant which always obeys Hooke's law or always obeys elastic limit. And there are two elastic models. Modulus of elasticity means stress, longitudinal stress or compressive stress proportional to compressive strain, and modulus of rigidity, shear stress is proportional to shear strain. This is defined. Both are within elastic limit and both are have obeying Hooke's law. Generally, we consider a ductile material not brittle or any other material is there. Now, a third constant being defined. If these three mutually perpendicular stresses of equal intensity are applied to a body of initial volume V, then the ratio of the direct stress to the volumetric strain is known as direct strain to volumetric strain is known as bulk modulus of rigidity. So direct stress, the acting over the particular design members and multiplied to the volumetric strain is the ratio of the direct stress to the volumetric strain is known as the bulk modulus K. Now, if the three there we have got a cube here, means a rectangular object, a cubical object whose all 6 different sizes same in dimension. Then, if three mutually perpendicular stresses, say here P, and P, they are mutually perpendicular. They are partial to each other, but acting in 3 different directions. Some in y-axis, some in x-axis, some in z-axis. Then the ratio of this direct stress to the volumetric strain is known as bulk modulus. Direct stress to the volumetric strain. Then the bulk modulus is applicable mainly to fluid problems with pressure intensity in all directions, and generally a particular point in a fluid is supposed to be under pressure equally in all three directions itself. Then, thus, the bulk modulus K is defined as the direct stress divided by volumetric strain, means that is P, and that is direct stress divided by the volumetric strain, then rate of change of strain, or divided by the original strain, or rate of change of volume divided by the original volume is the volumetric strain. So bulk modulus is K minus P divided by epsilon R. Volumetric strain epsilon R is given as sigma 1 plus sigma 2 plus sigma 3 multiplied by 1 minus 2 into nu divided by E itself, which means stress multiplied by the Poisson's ratio by the lateral stress, but stress, if we simplify, it will be like this: sigma 1 plus sigma 2 plus sigma 3 is equal to 2 into nu sigma 1 plus sigma 2 plus sigma 3 itself. Okay, divided by E itself. Since this is the stress, this is exactly the strain multiplied divided by E, means this is the strain, and this is the longitudinal stress minus this is the lateral strain, and this is exactly the volumetric strain, a change in the volume in the all respective direction. For these three principal stresses of equal intensity P, volumetric strain will be, these are all equal to P, that these are equal to principal stresses. The P is small, but it is not load, but the stress is resisting force per unit area. Then 3 multiplied by 1 minus mu multiplied by minus P, because P is here compressive in nature, divided by E. Therefore, K is a react stress. If you put the value of K here, which is being F sub V is being replaced by K by P. Say we replace this F sub V, K by P itself. So if we put it here, K will be minus P minus multiplied. And if we put it here and simplify, the things will like this. Minus P is equal to 3 minus 1 minus mu into P divided by E itself, or 3 is equal to E. If simplify further, will become 3 into K into 1 minus mu itself. So how we are doing it? K is equal to minus P. Let us go through. Let us discuss it in detail. What is given here? K just 1 second. That is K is given as direct stress divided by volumetric strain. Where volumetric strain is given as change in volume divided by original volume. Okay. Now, what is the volumetric strain? Analytically, volumetric strain F sub V means the rate of change of volume and original volume is given as sigma 1 plus sigma 2 plus sigma 3 multiplied by 1 minus 2 into nu divided by, that is E itself, Young's modulus itself. So if we put sigma 1 is equal to sigma 2 is equal to sigma 3 is equal to minus P, means a compressive in nature. Or if we have a cube like here, which is subjected to the compressive stresses in all three mutually perpendicular directions, like this. So sigma 1, sigma 2, sigma 3 are all equal, and they are compressive in nature, they are equal to P. So what happens? F sub V is equal to minus P multiplied by 1 minus one minus 2 into mu divided by E itself, Young's modulus itself, where mu, Poisson's ratio, E Young's modulus. Now, if we replace, so if we replace K is equal to minus P by EV, F sub E means external load, which is the direct stress divided by volumetric strain. This is F sub E, and or F sub E is equal to minus P divided by K itself. So you put it here. F sub P. So if in mutual cases minus P, take here. Oh, I have made a mistake here. Sigma 3 is all realized. That is 3 into sigma. That is 3 into sigma. That is 3 into 1 minus 2 into gamma divided by into, that is into P itself, into minus P actually. This is the difference. Now, if we put this, it is this in the value of K, the F sub V will be minus 3P. K is equal to P by E. So K, here what we put? We put it this in terms of H of V itself, or K becomes minus P itself divided by 3 into 2 into 1 minus of three into 1 minus what happened? Yes. If we put A, it is equal to K, and K is equal to 3 into we put if we here, that is original volumetric strain here, then K divided by direct stress by volumetric strain K. Take action. Is also removed. Or if we put the value of V here, say K will become minus P and the numerator divided by 3 into 2 into 1 minus, again that's a mistake I've done. 1 minus 1 minus 2 into mu multiplied minus P whole divided by E itself. Thus, it becomes, from this P will be cancelled, this P will be cancelling each other, and this becomes, and this minus is cancelling each other. So this becomes E is equal to E divided by 3 into 2 minus 1 minus 2 into gamma, or react 2 into gamma itself, or E is equal to 3 into K 1 minus 2 into mu itself. This is the one of the value relation between Young's modulus, the bulk modulus, and Poisson's ratio itself. Let us go for the next one. Too much time. Now let us discuss certain other factors affecting the Young's modulus or the relation. Let us go to the relationship between the different elastic constant itself. So what we have here, elastic constant as E is equal to G, that is mu, Poisson's ratio, and K. There are 4 elastic constants or defined as elastic constants or equal to elastic moduli. Means elastic modulus, the plural is elastic moduli. Now, the relation between the different elastic constants or elastic moduli, let us consider a square element. This is ABCD under the action of a shear stress C. This is a square element of unit thickness. Means it is like a piece of paper with the dimension in two direction only, x and y, x and z itself. So what we have, A, B, C, D is the square element itself. It is under the action of a shear stress tau like this. Now, the resultant distortion of the element is shown in here. Here, the element is distorted and takes this particular shape itself due to the action of shear stress. The total change of in the corner angle is therefore phi itself. Therefore, the small c dash and d dash can be assumed to be arc itself. Here we have got ABCD in D dash, C dash, B dash, and A dash, and it is defined. It is deformed by due to the action of shear stress. It is deformed by in a shape like this, which deformation is taken into account by an angle phi by 2 here and an angle phi by 2 here, which means the total angle of deformation is supposed to be phi. Pi by 2 plus phi by 2 is equal to phi, which is now we are showing it here to make our calculation comparatively easier. We are drawing this original square block of unit thickness here, ABCD, and next, after deformation, this box takes this position as C dash, D dash, A, and B, as it is the angle of deformation is equal to phi here. And if we draw a diagonal from A to C here, which is the AC, it is now changes to diagonal AC is now taking the shape, taking the position of equal to the formation of equal to A into C dash itself. What happens here? And the angle here, we know that the angle between the diagonal of a square is equal to 45 degree. Or this is also 45 degree, altogether it is 90 degree. We are considering that this angle here is also equal to 45 degree, because the difference between this 45 to this angle is extremely small itself. So what we have here, we have a rectangular triangle here. AC dash is the original diagonal. AC dash is the final diagonal. AC is the original diagonal. If we drop a particle from C to E, drop a particle to C to E about this diagonal AC from the point C, and we know the angle between C dash, and E is equal to 45 degree itself, where the angle C dash, C, B, and C dash, and D dash, and A is equal to phi itself. Now, the linear strength of the diagonal AC, the linear strength means how much the diagonal AC has increased, is given as AC dash minus AC. Original AC dash is the final length, minus AC is the original length, divided by the original length. And AC dash minus AC here is EC dash here, from here to here. So EC dash by AC itself. Then what is EC dash? Means EC, if we take it as a base of the triangle C dash E, and each C dash is the base. C dash is the hypotenuse, CE is the base, and now C dash E is the base, and CE the vertical insert are normal. Now, EC dash is given as EC dash will be CC dash cos 45 degree, as CC dash is the hypotenuse, and in between angle between CC dash and EC, C dash E is 45 degree itself. So C dash is the cos 45 degree. At the same time, AC, what is AC here? Here is the AC. AC is given as AB, means this length is the base, AB divided by cos 45 degree itself. A, because the in-between angle is 45 degree, and AC is the diagonal. So, and in the hypotenuse. So hypotenuse will be given by AB divided by cos 45 degree, or cos square 45 degree. This is equal to C dash by AB cos square 45 degree. So what is C dash? Then phi minus BC. C dash is equal to phi into BC. What is C dash? C dash on the other hand, this is C dash here. If this angle is phi, then C dash is phi multiplied by the BC itself. If we tell it's phi multiplied by BC itself, because the phi angle of phi is extremely small, so we do not need to make it tan phi or sin phi like this. So phi multiplied by BC, C dash, and AB is equal to BC. So we put AB as BC and try phi into BC, C dash of phi into BC. Thus, for cos 45 degree, the whole square is equal to 1 by root 2 whole square. So this becomes, BC is cancelling each other. So this becomes pi by 2 itself. So the linear strain of the axial diagonal AC is equal to half of the shear strain, half of shear strain. But the modulus of rigidity, you know, G is equal to pi by phi, or phi, or the shear strain is multiplied by shear stress into the modulus of rigidity. So if we put the value of phi here, and in terms of EC, in terms of F star or longitudinal strain of the diagonal, this diagonal strain will become tau divided by 2 into G. It will be shown in the next section. There is a state of simple shear on two perpendicular planes. The line tensor at 45 degree are subjected to a tensile stress of magnitude equal to that of the shear stress, while the planes at 135 degree subjected to a compressive stress of the same magnitude and with no shear stress. The plane AC and BD are subject to result tensile and compressive respectively. So here AC is tensile stress and BD is compressive stress itself. Thus, each and both are equal, respectively equal to the shear stress tau itself, which is acting on the surface itself. Now, the hence linear strain of the diagonal AC is equal to tau by E minus tau by divided by E minus nu to tau by E. That is, tau is equal to then tau by E 1 plus nu. Here both